Tommie Woodward was a 28-year-old Texas man who made national headlines in 2015. Before getting into his story, however, I humbly request that comments remain respectful, especially when it comes to this attack, as comments from certain individuals in the past on social media platforms had in fact sadly caused further emotional pain to Tommie's family. While growing up in a town called Pacific just outside Missouri, Texas, Tommie Woodward, his twin brother, and older sister had to endure an undeniably tough childhood. After their worlds shattered following their parents' separation, the family would struggle to make ends meet, and years would go by this way. The charming and fast-talking boy would join a traveling carnival as a carny and go on tour for a few months. Upon returning to Pacific, Tommie would then work with his dad remodeling Sonic drive-ins, a business that would last for just a short while before drying out. And so, Tommie would then work odd jobs in Pacific for years, struggling to get by and barely making ends meet. It wasn't until Tommie was in his early 20s that he'd receive a call from his twin brother Brian, who'd been living with his wife and child at this point in Orange, Texas, the state's easternmost city. As a result of the hardships that they endured together whilst growing up, Tommie had developed an extremely strong bond with Brian. In fact, at some point during their high school years, the twins even spent a few months living in a tent under a bridge, a time in which the brothers would go days without eating. Aware of just how hard life still was for Tommie in Pacific, Brian not only offers him a job in Orange, but furthermore assures him that he wouldn't have to worry about finding a place to live, and that he was more than welcome to stay with him and the family at their home for as long as he needed. Knowing there wasn't a future for him in Pacific anymore, Tommie accepts his brother's offer, packs his bags, and heads to Orange, Texas for a much-needed fresh start. Tommie would thereafter stay with his brother and his family in Orange County, Texas. The hard-working and motivated young man would finally get his own place in the same neighborhood as his brother, his older sister Tabitha, and their mom, Kelly, who Tommie was especially close with and would often call late at night even while drunk just to say hi and have a conversation with, affirming just how strong their mother-son bond was. It's also worth noting that although Tommie and Brian were heavy drinkers, the two were extremely hard workers and were very well liked. In fact, by most accounts from those that knew them, there was never a dull moment with the Woodward family, and it was Tommie who was especially loved for his natural charm and outgoing nature. Swimming, dancing, and hanging out with the people he loved at the local Burkhart's Marina, life had never been better for Tommie. By the time he turned 28, he'd be a regular at Adams Bayou, a bar at the Marina, and although he'd drink pretty heavily, people knew him more for making everyone around him smile, and was known as a pleasant drunk who just wanted everyone to have a good time. On July 2nd of 2015, Tommie had been enjoying a typical late night at the Bayou bar, drinking lots of beer, playing pool and shuffleboard with some friends and locals, and of course, doing what he did best, showing everyone a good time. At about 2 a.m., a drunken Tommie decides to go out for a swim with his friend Victoria in the dark waters of Adams Bayou just outside Burkhart's Marina. It's important to note that just weeks prior to this night, Kent Robnet, a local construction worker, had reported seeing a huge gator in the middle of the bayou. Although gators were quite common in this area, it's usually cause for concern when a gator as large as this one displays itself so outwardly. And this is because alligators that grow to such massive sizes are typically smart and stealthy, a key component for the success of a predator in terms of natural selection. Robnet's report furthermore indicated that not only did he believe that this alligator had lost its fear of humans for being so out in the open, but he furthermore noted that the massive gator had apparent scars and scratch marks on its face and stated that it had a bad look to it, akin to something out of a horror movie. It's also worth noting that the owner of the marina had in fact seen the very same gator in the bayou, which is when he immediately put up a no swimming sign, a sign which Tommie would unfortunately choose to ignore on this fateful night. As the pair approached the water's edge, Victoria suddenly notices the huge gator swim out from under the dock, blatantly reacting to their presence and displaying clear signs that it was not intimidated at the slightest. The gator stealthily raises its head out of the water in typical ambush fashion, scanning for potential prey items near the water's edge. I once again request that it's extremely important that we remain respectful from here on out and keep an open mind, especially if you intend on commenting on this video. Victoria shouts to Tommie, alerting him of the alligator's presence, which is when the once again extremely drunk and clearly overconfident Tommie yells, "That gator," and then immediately jumps into the water. As Tommie casually swims to a small island on the other side of the bayou, a stunned Victoria looks on in horror as Tommie is pulled under the water. Just moments later, Tommie resurfaces and yells to Victoria to stay out of the water as she attempted to jump in and try to help. Victoria shouts to Tommie to hold on, and then instantly turns and sprints back up to the Marina bar. She then alerts bartender Michelle Wright of the incident. A stunned Michelle frantically dials 911 and reports the incident as fast as she could, at the same time grabbing her flashlight and heading out to the bayou with Victoria. After about 5 minutes of scanning for Tommie in the dark bayou waters, Michelle spots Tommie's body face down near the dock. The gator viciously pulls Tommie's limp body into the water for what would be a final time, ending the 28-year-old's life in the matter of minutes. 2 hours after the attack, Tommie's body was recovered from the bayou waters, with his devastated twin brother Brian on site. His left arm was missing, indicating that the gator had grabbed him around his elbow and drowned him, followed by a death roll, something they typically do with their prey in order to rip off limbs, thereafter stashing the body for later consumption. A hunt for the gator was thereby initiated by local game wardens, all of whom failed to bring down the intelligent reptile. And so, after multiple failed attempts by the game wardens throughout a 72-hour time span, in comes aforementioned construction worker Kent Robnet, who alas takes it upon himself to kill the gator. Robnet thereby sets up a number of gator traps and lines around the bayou, and within just 24 hours, successfully manages to capture the gator, which he instantly killed with 7 rounds to the head upon capture, indicating that he couldn't help himself, as he repeated his previous statement that this particular gator had an evil look to it. Robnet would thereafter turn himself in to wildlife authorities shortly after capturing and killing the gator, and this can most likely be chalked up to the fact that he was feeling guilty after having killed what could possibly have been the wrong gator, and that too without a license. Despite his suspicions, however, and to his good fortune, Kent would be relieved to find out that the gator he'd caught was in fact the same one that had killed Tommie, as human remains would be found in its stomach shortly after it was captured and killed. Because Kent was honest and did kill the right gator, the authorities would eventually decide to let him off with a warning. Knowing just how easy of a target Tommie would be, and given his brazen attitude during the time of the attack, not to mention his heavy drinking habits, the media would thereafter unfortunately write dozens of articles painting Tommie as an ignorant alcoholic who deserved what happened to him. This in turn would of course cause even further pain to Tommie's family, as previously mentioned. And what's even more tragic was that the family was already shattered and mourning the shocking loss of their most beloved family member. This tragic incident marked the first time that an alligator attack led to a human fatality in all of Texas since 1836. If this episode sparked your interest, then our last episode about a shocking mountain lion attack is sure to do the same. You can find it on the end screen of this video. Thanks again for watching When Animals Attack.